everything is energy, right? Matter is mostly empty space. We have atoms that are in motion, and EMFs, which is your electromagnetic field, is generated by literally everything. Okay. Crystals are not magic rocks. Crystals have a precise chemical composition. They have an orderly atomic lattice, which means that they are orderly, they are coherent, and they are stable energy fields. Unlike us as humans, we are very unstable, right? I mean, we are. We all know we are. Welcome to Big Crystal Energy, Season 3, the Veil Season. I'm Ashleigh, and I live at the threshold between medicine and magic, between the visible world and what waits just beyond it, between the person I present and the witch I am. I've learned something. The in-between isn't a problem to solve. It's a place of power. This season, we're exploring the veil, where Victorian women spoke for the dead, where fairies guard the crossroads, where glamour becomes armor, where you stop apologizing for being both things at once. The crystals have always known the way through. Let me show you. Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy. I'm Ashleigh, and I am here lighting some incense and getting ready to record this episode. We are going way back to the beginning of Big Crystal Energy, where it all started with the core of what this podcast was all about, which was crystal healing. And way back in the first episodes, I did a couple episodes about the science of crystal healing and cleansing and clearing crystals and all of that. But I felt like, who wants to scroll back through over 100 episodes to get to that? Even though those are some of my most downloaded episodes of all time, I thought we would do a refresh. Okay. So we're going to get into it. This episode is really going to be all about what is crystal healing? How are crystals used? What is the science behind this? And how can we use them? And at the end of the show, it's really going to be about why this podcast was never really about the crystals to begin with. I mean, it is, but it isn't. So let's just dive into it. Oh, and you know what else? You know what I wanted to get back to, which I have gotten way away from, and I don't really even know how this happened, but I want to start saying what is bringing me big crystal energy. What is bringing me the crystal energy? Let me get my little bell out. What is bringing me the crystal energy this week? Well, let me tell you. Tomorrow, I am going to be starting my training with Krista Mitchell. I'm going through a whole summer of Akashic crystal healing, and I cannot wait. Never has something truly felt so aligned and so perfect and in the right moment. I have the time for this. The classes are on Saturday mornings, which is perfect for me. And then I cannot wait to get my certification and then share it with all of y'all. So that is what's bringing me big crystal energy this week. And you know what? The second thing that's bringing me big crystal energy is you guys should have seen the troll that I was like an hour and a half ago before I pulled myself together, because I thought to myself, there is no way I'm going to get on and do a recording looking like I came out of the swamp. This has been such a rough week for me. I have been on a struggle bus. There's been things going on. I physically, mentally have just not been feeling it this week. I have not been able to keep up with anything in my life. I feel like I'm just getting through the day to day. And then my little one, Jazzy, decided that he did not feel like sleeping this week. Nope, we don't believe in sleep around here. Why would we need that when we're 3 years old? Let's just keep everybody up all night. So we've been dealing with that. But last night, Everybody finally crashed out. It was amazing. We got through the whole night with no wake ups. And hopefully now we're back. Now we're getting back on track. So I woke up this morning. I was like, I'm going to go out. I'm going to get myself a latte at my favorite local coffee shop. I'm going to come home and I'm going to put this amazing episode together. And then I'm going to pull myself together and I'm going to record. And yeah, I am so excited. So let's do it. Let's dive into the crystal world. Now, one more thing before we begin. I wanted to bring my big, gorgeous crystal ball of labradorite with me today. This is such an incredibly special, magical piece. If you see the cover of my podcast, I'm holding this crystal ball in the cover, and it's just so special to me. I love labradorite. It is near and dear to my heart. It's hard to have favorites around here, friends. It's hard to have favorites, but definitely top 5. Definitely top 5. And I cannot wait for next weekend because the San Francisco Crystal Fair is happening. And I have a few things on my list that I'm looking for. And I can't wait for that either. And I'm going to report back on the San Francisco Crystal Fair as well. So, okay. All right. Putting all that aside, let's start with where crystals come from. Okay. So the oldest known crystal is zircon, which is 4.4 billion years old, found in what we know now as Australia. 4.4 billion years old zircon. Crystals pretty much predate life on this planet. They were here before anything was alive. And they've been used for healing for millennia. Not centuries, friends. Millennia. Millennia. So the formal term for crystal healing is lithotherapy. The Greek lithos, meaning stone, and therapia, which is healing. It's been used in traditional Chinese medicine, which sometimes I might refer to as TCM, and Ayurveda, which are both over 5,000 years old healing modalities. They still reference crystals and ancient healing formulas that are used even today. This is not a new age trend. This is one of the oldest relationships humans have with the earth. Okay. And I know people love to make fun of me for my crystal healing and my crystals, and everybody loves to heckle me about it here, there, and everywhere. And I get that. It does seem, I'll be the first to admit, it does seem new agey or whatnot, but in fact, it's not. It's actually not new agey. It's ancient. It's been around for thousands of years, millennia. And I'm here to show you the science behind it, and I'm here to show you how you are going to use it in your current times, and why even me as a scientific person, as a PA working in Western medicine, how it is something that you can really blend with everything in your life. So here we go. The science. Crystals are already in your medicine. That's what we'll call this part. Crystals are used in modern medical practice right now, today. For example, ultrasound machines, they use piezoelectric crystals to produce sound waves. So piezoelectric are crystals that when you rub them together, such as quartz, they cause like a flash. So that's really fun to do. It's a little fun experiment you can do with your kids or even yourself. You could take 2 pieces of quartz crystal and you could go into a dark closet and you rub them together and you will see a little spark, a little flash. So they use that in ultrasound machines. You have ultrasound can also cauterize wounds and blast tumors without invasive surgery. Ancient shamans and crystal healers knew that crystals focus sound and light into a concentrated ray. Modern medicine just gave it a different name. Okay. So a lot of the things that people were doing way back, we have now rebranded and used in a different, more modern way. But these things have been going on for a very long time. You can rotate a crystal wand on the skin, causing compression, which releases a focused beam to the tissue beneath, which is a similar principle that's used with clinical ultrasound. And like I talked about before with the piezoelectricity, under pressure, crystal atoms generate an electrical charge, and your body reacts and responds to quartz within your electromagnetic field. So the human biofield extends about 2 feet in all directions, and the proximity of the crystal works even without physical contact. So that can be why crystal healing, you don't necessarily have to have them touching your body. As long as you have them within like a 2-foot radius, that energy is going to directly affect you. Okay. Without having to physically touch you. One stone, for example, malachite. Let me grab my piece of malachite here. Malachite, gorgeous green, has high copper concentration. Wearing a malachite bracelet allows the body to absorb trace copper the same way a copper bracelet does, right? So you see people wear copper things all the time, right? You see people wear copper bracelets. You see people wear, I just saw someone yesterday that had like a copper infused, it was like a copper infused knee brace. Now, when people wear a copper infused knee brace, they're not getting teased as much when, let's say that they were wearing a copper coated, a malachite coated crystal knee brace, they may get teased a little bit more for that. But when it's just a knee brace that has copper in it, other than a copper based mineral, it's okay. Interesting how that works, right? When I was doing my research, Judy Hall's book, she said something that was interesting. Some crystals deliver something called infinitesimal vibrational doses of substances that in large amounts would be harmful. And this is the homeopathic principle of like cures like built into the mineral kingdom. So you can have a crystal which has a tiny, tiny, tiny vibrational dose of something, but if you would give that same amount in a larger dose, it would be harmful, right? So crystals use very subtle energy. The energy of a crystal can be powerful, but ultimately it's the subtle crystalline energies that we are typically working with. And for me as a PA, working in medicine all these years, I was using crystalline technology over the years, but I wasn't really thinking of it in that way. And I wasn't really calling it crystalline technology. But now it's interesting looking back at some of these modalities and realizing that there is crystal infused in some of these things that we actually use in a modern way. And so to me, it always kind of makes me giggle when people are teasing me about working with crystals, but yet there's crystals that we're using all the time in modern medicine. Now, I know in some senses it is very different. I'm not gonna say that it's not, but technically crystals are used in modern medicine as well as more metaphysical healing modalities. How about we say it like that? So, how do crystals actually work? Okay. Everything is energy, right? Matter is mostly empty space. We have atoms that are in motion, and EMFs, which is your electromagnetic field, is generated by literally everything. Okay. Crystals are not magic rocks. Let me say that again. Crystals are not magic rocks. Crystals have a precise chemical composition. They have an orderly atomic lattice, which means that they are orderly, they are coherent, and they are stable energy fields. unlike us as humans, we are very unstable, right? I mean, we are. We all know we are. There's a concept called coherence, which I'm going to break down a little bit more in the next upcoming segment. But just for now, I'm going to mention coherence because this is a very important concept. The unit cell within the crystal repeats with virtually no deviation throughout the entire structure. But our energy field is largely incoherent. It's constantly shifting with our thoughts, with our food, with our stress, with our environment, with conversation, everything. Like we are constantly shifting. Crystals are not. A crystal is so much more organized than us. And that is really the whole point of working with them. Okay. Something else we have to talk about: frequency, amplitude, wavelength. Frequency is the unique signature of the crystal, the station that it's on, right? Like if we're thinking about it in terms of a radio, right? The amplitude is the strength of the signal, kind of like the volume, right? We obsess over the frequency in metaphysical culture often, and we completely neglect to look at the amplitude. You could be tuned into the right station on the radio, but it could be broadcasting at the station could be turned so low that it's just broadcasting at a whisper. What good does that do you, right? So you could be listening to your favorite station, but it could be turned way down. Are you even hearing it? No, you're not. So crystals also have something called a DOR, which is a dominant oscillatory rate. Every crystal has a stable DOR. Humans have multiple shifting ones. A crystal entrains you to its stability. So what is entrainment? This is another really important concept. This is the actual mechanism of how the crystal healing works. So it's when two vibrating systems synchronize and the higher amplitude field wins. The crystal's coherent field trains your incoherent field toward the other. So one example that I like to use a lot is you walk into a room where someone is in a horrible mood, right? And you can feel that immediately. That's when entrainment is really working against you, right? Because their energy, their amplitude is so strong that it's affecting everyone else in the room. Crystal healing is entrainment that actually works for you because the crystal's amplitude can be so strong that it really aligns whatever you have going on within you to the energy of the crystal. Another example of another good way of thinking about entrainment is if you are in a room full of clocks that are on a pendulum, eventually they all start swinging together. Their energies all start aligning. And that's kind of the basics of what entrainment is. So let's get down to some of these very sciencey terms. We'll explain them a little bit more in detail because I think this stuff, even though this isn't necessarily the fun side of crystal healing for some people, it is a necessary aspect of it. To really understand how crystals work, we really need to understand the science of it. All right, so we're going to go back to coherence, which I mentioned briefly a couple minutes ago. This is the foundation of crystal healing. So every other function of crystal healing flows from this topic. You understand this one and the rest will make sense, okay? The crystal's atomic structure repeats the same pattern from the molecular level all the way up, with virtually no deviation. It's just one unified signal. Okay. Think of a crowd that's talking all at one time versus a choir that's singing on the same note. You could have potentially the same number of voices in a room, but they have a completely different energetic output. Your body's energy field is the crowd. The crystal is the choir. Does that make sense? A laser is an actual example of how a laser works because of a crystal's coherence. That's kind of like the tie back to how it would work in my world of medicine. But you're in a crowd, it's loud, it's chaotic, voices, blah, 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 everywhere. You listen to a choir, there's the same number of people as there is in the crowd. The choir is very cohesive. That's coherence. Now, amplification. Coherent fields project. So a coherent field projects louder and clearer. Quartz, for example, like I have right here, clear quartz, is the master amplifier. But it amplifies everything, including what you don't want amplified. You can't pick and choose what it's going to amplify because its coherence is the same. If you're doing a crystal healing session and you bring grief, fear, or anger to the quartz, it will amplify that too. This is why intention and energetic hygiene before working with crystals actually matters. You're working with a signal booster, not a filter. So the uncomfortable truth about all of this is that the crystal doesn't curate what it amplifies. You are responsible for what you bring to it. Okay. So the crystal is unable to curate the experience. The crystal is the same all the time. Oh my God. Oh, sorry. I just hit my mic. I need to turn my phone onto silent because I just hear it buzzing, buzzing, buzzing. And it's kind of making me crazy. Okay. So let me just put my phone on silent really quickly so that we don't go crazy here. Okay. Now I want to talk about reflection and shadow. Crystals reflect higher consciousness back at you. Their ordered state mirrors your own potential coherence, but they also reflect your shadow, your patterns, your unresolved material, your imperfections, which we all have, of course. The sudden crying, the unexpected anger, the old memory that surfaces during crystal work. That is not the crystal healing practice failing. That's the reflection doing exactly what it's supposed to do. This is the side of crystal healing that I personally really like because a lot of people look at crystal healing as, oh, it's all love and light. Let me tell you, it is not all love and light. Nothing is all love and light. While I appreciate that side of it, I'm also the girly that likes the dark side, the shadow side, because that is where the truth really lies. We are not a single one of us, all love and light. A perfect mirror doesn't just show your best angle, right? It shows what's actually there. If you look at a mirror, even if it's the most beautiful, amazing, gorgeous mirror you've ever seen in your life, that whatever you look like, you still look like. The mirror is not going to change that, right? It's the same thing with the crystal. So when something uncomfortable comes up in your practice, the first thought could be, well, I don't like this, so I'm going to use a different stone to work with. No. Sit with what's being shown to you, because that's where the real work comes in. Next up, I want to talk about refraction and focus. Refraction is energy bending and redirecting as it moves through a medium. The key word is focus. Crystals redirect and concentrate energy toward where it's needed, bringing light and awareness to areas that have been blocked, stagnant, and or neglected. Crystal wands, like this gorgeous fluorite one that I have right here. Crystal wands work on this principle. You rotating one on the skin creates compression that focuses energy directly into the tissue beneath. Now, this particular crystal wand, I probably would not want it jammed into my skin because the ends are very sharp. But I have other crystal wands where the ends are very like round and smooth. So you could push that into your skin and direct the energy. And it would maybe be slightly uncomfortable, but it wouldn't be like stabbing this sharp tipped fluorite wand into your skin. This particular wand is more like for focusing energy up and out and really pointing it in whatever direction, not necessarily jamming it into yourself. Let's see here. Oh, I'm trying to organize all my notes. I had so many notes, you guys. It was ridiculous putting this episode together. I'll be real honest. It was ridiculous because there is you guys, I go down rabbit holes. There is so much information. It's like, okay, how can I condense this into an appropriate size podcast episode? It's very hard. It's very hard. Anyway, back to refraction and focus. This is the same principle. This is the same physics as we talked about earlier with ultrasound, which I mentioned before about the piezoelectric crystals focusing a sound wave into a precise beam. Sometimes healing isn't more energy. It's the same energy pointed to somewhere new. Okay. Now we have transmitting and receiving. Crystals are antenna, broadcasting their signal outward and receiving incoming energies simultaneously in and out. The perfect ordered structure transmits. The minute imperfections in the lattice, called lattice defects, are what allow them to receive. So sit with this for a moment. Perfection transmits, imperfection receives. Your wounds, your cracks, your unresolved places are also your receiving channels. This is why placement matters. A crystal on your body, in a room, in a grid, is actively working whether you're consciously engaged with it or not. This is also the mechanism behind why cleansing matters. Crystals receive and hold whatever they're exposed to. So I'm going to link the episode where I went in depth about all the different ways that you can cleanse your crystals, because there are so many different ways, and some are more appropriate for certain crystals than other crystals. I mean, some crystals you can cleanse in water, whereas other crystals like selenite you don't want to put in water because that could cause it to fall apart. So I will link that episode, which is a very comprehensive episode on crystal cleansing. I'll link that episode in the show notes here, just in case you want to know more about crystal cleansing. But let me just say before we move on that for me, and I know I've mentioned this in other podcast episodes, I have tons of crystals. And it was really cute today because I was texting with a friend and I was telling her how I'm going to be going to the San Francisco Crystal Fair, and there's a few crystals on my list that I'm specifically looking for that I don't have. And she's like, oh, I just assumed that you had all the crystals. I'm like, girl, there are thousands of crystals. There's literally no way that I could have all of them. But that's so cute that you would think that I have all of them. And maybe if I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but maybe at the end of the episode, I will reveal the few crystals that I'm looking for. There's another concept called translation. It's one of the most underexplained functions and possibly one of the most important functions of crystals. Crystals are multidimensional translators. It's technically called transduction, the conversion of one form of energy to another. Quartz literally converts mechanical pressure into electricity and then back again. It translates force into a different type of language. On a subtle level, crystals translate between layers of your existence. Okay, this is going to get very esoteric here, and I'm here for it. Physical sensation into emotional awareness, mental patterns into energetic information. spiritual downloads into something your nervous system can process. This is why a crystal placed on the body might produce an emotional release instead of or alongside a physical one, because it's operating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. And this is also why you don't always understand why a crystal is working while it's working, because it may be translating at a level you don't even have conscious access to yet, right? There's just so many different levels. Like a crystal could be working on us in ways that we don't even know. I mean, for example, sometimes it can be very hard for people, even like myself, who, we're trying to heal from certain things, and we think about different ways that we heal. For example, we take antidepressants, or we talk to a therapist, or we have some other kind of healing modality where we're feeling those effects relatively quickly, and we can physically feel those effects, or we can mentally process those effects right away. Whereas crystal healing is not necessarily like that. You may not feel that when it's working. You may not feel that immediately because it may not be working on the plane that you're in your physical realm right now. It could be working on different realms of your existence. I mean, sometimes we feel it immediately, but a lot of times it's a subtle energy, so we don't feel it in the ways that we're typically used to feeling things. And personally, I love that. So I think this is, let's see here. Oh yeah, okay. So this is kind of like the last sciencey portion, the last physics part of the explanation of how all this works. So the lattice defects in crystals act as storage cells. Particles of energy become trapped there. Crystals record the energy of their environments, the people who have handled them, the spaces that they've been in, the intentions directed at them. And this is why cleansing of your crystals is not all about superstition. It's clearing the previous recordings so you're working with a clean signal. So when I go to the crystal fair next weekend and I buy the stones, I'm not going to just come home and immediately just start working with them. No, I'm going to cleanse them first. And for me, getting back to the whole point of why I was sharing the whole thing about my friend thinking that I have every crystal. I have a lot of crystals. I don't have every crystal. But for me, because I have so many in my environment, getting them out under the full moon is not very realistic. The cleansing modality that I use the most often in my home, two things: sound. I have a bell that I use. The other one I use a lot is smoke. But you have to be careful of that. You don't want to set off your fire alarm, because I've definitely gotten a little out of hand with my smoke cleansing, and the fire alarms were going off and driving everybody in my house, most specifically my dog, insane. But sound cleansing is great too. All right. Now let's talk about programming. That is when you are deliberately imprinting a specific intention into the lattice, so the crystal broadcasts that frequency. You're not wishing at the crystal, you're uploading data. But you have to match the frequency at which the information was stored to access it. You can't force your way in through willpower, only through resonance. Okay. Now, crystal programming and all of that, that's a whole nother episode. I just wanted to touch on it briefly. And I just wanted to do one little myth buster before we move on. Quartz itself is not responsible for computer memory the way sometimes in pop crystal culture claims it to be. Okay, computer memory uses refined silicon, a lab synthesized metal. Quartz is used as an oscillator for its precise, stable vibration. It keeps time like a heartbeat. It is not a filing cabinet. It's a pulse. Okay. So the quartz keeps the thing, it keeps it going, like it keeps the vibration stable, but it's not the one thing that actually holds the memory of the computer. Okay. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. Now, for most people, crystal healing is more about holistic healing. And crystals do heal more holistically through both physically, emotional, mental, spiritual, like all simultaneously, right? They work on the biomagnetic sheath, which is the energetic field that surrounds and interpenetrates the physical body. Most illness has a root cause at the subtle level before it becomes physical, right? So you have emotional or mental dis-ease, spiritual disconnection or unease, environmental factors, electromagnetic stress, geopathic stress. Here's an example from Judy Hall's book. Black tourmaline or smoky quartz placed between you and a source of electromagnetic stress can measurably shift your experience. Crystals work on the cause of the disease, not just the symptom. For example, digestive issues. You could put citrine on the abdomen, but go deeper. Go deeper. Money fears, spiritual disconnection from your abundance. Citrine's crown chakra activation addresses the root of it, right? So maybe you're having a lot of, to reframe how I just said that, like maybe you're having a lot of digestive issues because you are feeling very stressed about money. So if you activate the crown chakra, it will kind of alleviate that stress at the root. This is holistic action. Like this is holistic thinking in action. It's a similar principle to the way that I treat people as a PA. It's just this is just a different toolkit, right? Crystals are connected to specific body parts and organs. This maps to TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, the meridian theory, astrology, chakras, traditions that have been cross-referencing these connections for thousands of years. Some crystals sedate overactive systems. Others stimulate underactive ones. For example, magnetite does both. It has a positive and negative charge. It has bidirectional regulation. And this is not unlike pharmaceutical mechanisms that I work with clinically. Okay. We are literally made of crystals. Okay, get ready for this. Your body is more crystalline than you think. Teeth and bones are made of hydroxyl apatite, which is a crystalline mineral. DNA, hemoglobin, collagen, connective tissue, cell membranes, all crystalline properties. Your body is a liquid crystal body matrix. Structured water. The water in your cells is organized in a liquid crystalline state. It has memory. Connective tissue and muscle proteins store memory. Physical, psychological, spiritual. This is why trauma lives in the body. It's not a metaphor. It's crystalline storage. You are not a human just holding a rock. You are one crystalline intelligence reaching towards a more coherent one, a more coherent crystalline intelligence, right? The crystal doesn't give you something you don't have. It reflects back a more ordered version of what you already are. Let me say that again. The crystal doesn't give you something you don't have. It reflects back a more ordered version of what you already are. Now I want to get into another concept, another big concept. You guys, crystal healing is wild. It's very complex. Let's just say that. So I also wanted to talk to you guys about sacred geometry and platonic solids. If I've lost you here, I'm sorry. No one says you can't go back and re-listen to all this stuff over again. And there's tons of books out there on all of these things. And truth be told, I could do a podcast episode on any one of these topics. I could do a whole entire podcast episode on any of these. And I could go much, much deeper than what I'm touching on here today. Most people think of crystals as pretty rocks with assigned meanings. And I see that all the time. But what they actually are is geometry made physical. Sacred geometry is the study of mathematical patterns and shapes that serve as the fundamental building blocks of all life and matter. The same geometric patterns in crystal structures also appear in nautilus shells, snowflakes, flower petals, DNA spirals, and galaxies. This is not coincidence. It's the universe using the same efficient templates at every scale. Ancient cultures across the world, Egyptian, Greek, Hindu, Islamic, Celtic, all independently arrived at the same geometric forms as sacred and foundational. They weren't making art. They were encoding what they understood about the structure of reality. So there are 5 platonic solids. Plato, in the 4th century BCE, identified 5 fundamental shapes he believed were the building blocks of all physical reality. The only geometric solids where every face is identical, every edge equal, fitting perfectly into a sphere. Okay. There are exactly 5. Only 5. The universe is not random. Each maps to a classical element. Okay. So you have the tetrahedron with 4 faces, which we associate with fire for transformation, activation. The cube, which has 6 faces, which is associated with earth, stability, grounding, manifestation. Octahedron, which has 8 faces, associated with air for mental clarity, integration, balance. Then we have the icosahedron, which is 20 faces, associated with water for emotional flow, surrender, creativity. And then we have the dodecahedron, which has 12 faces, which we associate with spirit. Plato considered this the shape of the universe itself, the shape of spirit. Every mineral on Earth crystallizes into one of 7 crystal systems, all expressions of these same geometric principles. The geometry is not separate from the energy. The geometry is the energy. So the bigger point of all of this, more facets equal higher DOR, which is the dominant, what did I call it? The DOR, which was the dominant oscillatory rate, which means faster energetic spin in the human biofield. This is why Vogel, the diamond Vogel, cut healing crystals with multiple facets. You've heard of Vogel diamonds, right? When you hold a crystal, you are holding the same geometric code found in your DNA, your cells, the chambers of your heart. You don't need to memorize any of this to feel it. Just hold a crystal and consider what it means that the universe keeps returning to these shapes. This topic itself really deserves its own episode, and that will be coming. But for now, just let this land. Crystals are not random. They are the universe's preferred vocabulary made touchable. Now, how do you actually work with crystals? After hearing all of this, which I know is very heavy in science, it's very heavy in physics, and it can feel very overwhelming, and I get that. But how do you actually work with a crystal? Do you need to fully understand all of these principles that I talked about? No. It is helpful, but it's not necessary. Number 1, choose your crystal. This gets people hung up from the get-go, out the gate. Well, how do I know what crystal to work with? And I say, why don't you just start with your intuition? Why don't you start with your intuition? You want to, what I say is, when you, maybe you already work with lots of crystals and you understand this principle, but if you are absolutely new to working with crystals, what I always tell people is go to a metaphysical shop, go to a crystal shop, walk around. What calls to you? What calls to you? That is the crystal that you start working with. When I really got back into working with crystals, I'd always collected crystals when I was younger, but I hadn't even really thought about them in a long time. I had like a little bag with some tumbled stones that I had been carrying around with me for 20 years plus. And then it's when I first found this piece of celestite in New Mexico. My intuition told me, you need to work with this stone. I didn't even know what it was until I researched it. And I'm not saying that this is the only way that you can connect with a crystal, but I say more than anything, more than walking, you could always walk around too and see what the labels in the crystal shop say that the crystal is used for. But I truly believe that the most powerful way to connect with a crystal is to connect with the crystal itself before connecting with its potential projected meaning. One of the big things that is so important for me on this podcast when I do my crystal library episodes is to really understand how crystals got their particular meanings. But I also want you to understand is if you have a stone and you feel a certain way about it and it doesn't match what the label at the crystal shop says, go with what you feel. Go with what you feel. What is the energy that you are getting? Because while the crystal structure is the same for that crystal across the board, the energy that you bring to it is your own unique energy. And the way that you feel about it is going to be very unique to you. So don't only rely on what the described meaning of the crystal is. You need to connect with it on your own level. So, what are some of the easiest ways, best practices for working with crystals? For me, the easiest is wearing crystals. For example, I have labradorite in my earrings right now. I have these labradorite moon earrings. Love that. Labradorite to me, it is one of the most mystical, magical stones. And yes, that's what you will see when you read about it, that it is a stone of intuition and it is a stone that looks like it has aurora borealis or the northern lights trapped inside of it. There's just something about labradorite that makes me feel a certain way. It just makes me feel like my next level self when I work with it. I feel like my most witchy self when I have that stone in my presence. I don't feel that same way with other stones. For me, I've never been a girly that really connects that much with rose quartz, or at least all rose quartz. I have this piece of rose quartz, which I will show you. Ooh, if I can pick it up with one hand. This piece of rose quartz I am very much connected with, but it's almost like a lavender rose quartz. I got this particular piece from the San Francisco Crystal Fair a couple years ago. I had never really connected with rose quartz since I was a kid. And when I saw this particular piece, I just knew instantly that I needed to have it. And I always have the stone with me. It's always in the room around me. And I just love the energy of it so much. And it's not a love and light crystal for me. It's not. It is really it's a stone that makes me feel just so connected to myself. It's a stone that allows me to know that I'm on the right path. It's the stone that I guess in some senses it is a self-love stone. It is a love stone, but not in the traditional sense of people thinking of rose quartz and like, oh, I'm going to work with rose quartz to attract love. I do attract love, but I attract love not from necessarily a partner, but more from a sense of me wanting to show up and loving myself, but also loving my path and loving what I'm doing. So, you know, whatever. I think I just kind of went off on a tangent there, but let me set this stone down. Oh, it's heavy. Not as heavy as my big labradorite crystal ball. But yeah, you can carry your stones with you. I love putting them in my pocket. I love my crystal clarity walks that I do at work all the time. I usually will, every day before I go to work, I almost always pick a stone, just a piece of just a tumbled crystal, whatever. A lot of times lately, I've been working with the crystal that I'm talking about on the crystal library. Then I will carry that particular stone all week. But, sometimes the energy of the stone that I talked about on the crystal library is not the energy that I'm really vibing with for that week. So I will pick up something different, or maybe there's a specific energy that I get from a stone that I want to work with. As I have explained to you all many times in the past, I do orthopedic surgery. So let's say, for example, I'm going to be on call at the hospital, and I know that day I'm going to definitely be needing more clarity, energy. I'm going to need more high vibes to get through the day, because my energy is going to be getting pulled from so many different directions. My go-to for that is carnelian. Love carnelian for when I'm on call. It just helps me get that energy and that vibration of that day just right. It always works for me. But that's an easy way. Or you can wear the mala bracelets, necklaces, earrings, jewelry. I mean, for me, I love wearing crystals. I'm not a bracelets person. I don't like the feeling of a bracelet rubbing on my wrist because I'm on the computer a lot and it's always hitting the desk. So for me, that's not the best, but I love my rings, which are not always great at work because I have to put gloves and stuff and wash my hands all the time. So I don't usually wear rings at work, but when I'm not at work, I love wearing my jewelry on my hands. Earrings are always a go-to. Necklaces are usually a very, very simple way to wear your crystals, or just your pocket. I don't put them. A lot of women say they put them in their bra. For me, that just does not work. I feel like they're going to come flying out, and I don't want that to happen. Other easy ways to work with crystals is to lay them on your body, put them around you. Maybe you're going to do a meditation. Maybe just make like a rectangle with like two in one corner and two in one corner, and you lay in the middle of the crystals. You're kind of crystal gridding out your body. Let's see here. What else? Well, I think how to work with crystals themselves, that is a whole other thing. So I'm not going to really get into that too much in this episode, but as I talked about the importance of cleansing the crystals. They absorb and record energy from the environment. And so it's very important to cleanse them, especially if you're getting new crystals or you've been working with ones for a while or you haven't cleansed them in a while. Or let's say, for example, you get into an argument with your spouse and that tense energy was in a room where you have a lot of your stones. Maybe you want to cleanse that because those stones are holding on to that challenging energy. And another really cool way to work with your crystals is to use them in combination with each other. So you may want to do a little research on what stones enhance each other, which stones kind of maybe cancel each other out. Some amplify, some diminish. You have to do a little bit of research on that. But what I really want to share with you all, that at the end of the day, let me just have a little sip here before I go on my soapbox. My big crystal energy soapbox. At the end of the day, it's not really even about the crystals. At the end of the day, it's really about you and figuring out what kind of energy you want to have for your life. Because when I started this journey, my energy was not what it is today. And I do attribute it to the crystals, of course, in some senses, but I also have learned so many lessons from the crystals and from not only the crystals, but from the science that I've learned, the spirituality that I've learned, the patience that I've learned, the people that I've met along this path. Never in my life have I met so many incredible, amazing, wonderful people. Never. Never, never, never. I mean, I've spent however many years in school training to be a PA. How many years have I spent working in the medical field? I mean, I have been working, let's see, technically, I have been working as a PA for 18 years. I have been in my current job for 10 years. I have been, 18 years practicing, 2 years in training. I worked in medical for a year even before that. So 21 years in medicine. And throughout that whole journey, I've met great people. I truly have. I've met some fascinating individuals. I've met some amazing PAs. I've met amazing nurses, doctors, medical assistants. I'm not going to say that I haven't, because I have. But truth be told, some of the biggest lessons and most incredible people that I have met have been within the last several years of me going down this crystal magical journey. So what I know is it's not just the crystals. Big crystal energy is the energy. It's energy that you gain when you are really connected to yourself and to what it is that you feel passionate about. And I feel passionate about this. I'm so passionate about this. I don't care that people literally constantly are making fun of me about all of this. They think it's kooky. They think there's so many people in my life that don't even want to they know that I have this podcast. They know that I have all this stuff going on. They don't even want to even approach it with me. They want to act like this whole side of me doesn't even exist. And I'm sure that some of you listening to this totally get that. And it's hard, right? Because when we're so excited about something, we want to shout it from the rooftops. We want everyone to get it. We want everyone to get it. We want everyone to jump on the train with us, right? But it just doesn't work like that. And I never want to be someone that's pushing I don't like when people come door to door and are trying to sell me their religion. I don't love when people are coming, leaving their brochures on my front porch. I'm never going to be like that. If you're interested and if you have an interest and you come to me, I'm happy to share it. But I'm never going to push it on you. The only way that it gets pushed on you is because every day you see how I am and how I show up and the energy that I have and the joy that I have and the peace that I have now since pursuing this path. And that's all that I need to prove. I don't have to explain this to people every single day. While I do enjoy understanding all of the principles and all the things that I've explained on the podcast today, because I think at the end of the day, sometimes people, they want to quiz you, they want to test you to see if you really understand how these principles work. It's like you're only legitimate if you can prove why it works. And I honestly say to people like, well, here are the things that I know and here's the science behind it, but at the end of the day, do I really know why it works or why it's worked that much for me? I don't really know. I just know that it did, and I just know that it does. And I just know that I have such a greater passion for life now than I ever did before. And I know that that's possible for you too. Whether it's through the love of crystals or magic or whatever it may be, I just want you to find that joy. And if finding a crystal in a little shop changes your life, that's incredible. If you hold a crystal and you feel nothing, that's okay too. If you think everything that I'm talking about here today is complete BS, well, you probably aren't listening to this episode anyway. But, I collect my information about all of this stuff across so many resources. Most of these episodes take me a lot of time to put together because I want to make sure that the things that I'm sharing is true. And I cross-check among many resources. I have a huge library of all this stuff here in my house. I don't just get on Google and just Google all this stuff. Like, I make sure that I have legitimate resources from legitimate people that have worked in these fields for a very long time. And that's how I collect my information. And then I share that information in a more condensed way, or at least I try to. I mean, sometimes I understand some of these topics, they're hard for me to explain other than just explaining them in the ways that the people that I'm reading from the book, like, I kind of have to just sort of, I don't want to say copy, but like essentially take that same similar wording and use it here because I don't really know how else to explain it. But I'm just saying that it's not just about the crystals. It's about just showing up for your life with joy and energy and doing what you enjoy with your life and having that zest and passion for whatever it is. And if crystals help, amazing. Anyhow, um, you know, the last thing I want to say is you could be a crystal collector. And there's been times on this path where I've really been the person that's just kind of collecting the stones and not necessarily spending my time working with them. But it's so much more powerful if you actually sit and you spend time with the stones. Whether that's through a meditation, whether that's wearing it on jewelry, whether that's sitting and just holding a stone and just meditating with it, or simply just holding it and looking at it and just being mesmerized by such beauty that the earth creates. The colors, the way that the stone, the way the crystalline structure, I find it so fascinating. I mean, for example, how malachite, it has all these like banding patterns, and how beautiful the green is. I love the copper-based minerals, and how on an episode of the Crystal Library that is coming out, well, the episode that's just prior to this episode about azurite and how azurite turns into malachite, I found to be absolutely fascinating. And so when you're looking at this piece of malachite, I can see the blue azurite around the edge here, which is really fascinating. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. I've taken up an hour of your time. I thought this episode was going to be like 30 minutes long, and now it's an hour. But I just felt like it was really important to get into all of this and do a refresh on crystal healing and the science of crystals and all of that fun stuff. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here. This podcast is a dream come true. Having this outlet for myself is truly more than I could have ever imagined. The connections that I've made through the podcast, through my social media, meeting all of you people online, chatting with you, it means so much to me when people reach out and say that they've connected with my episodes in any way. It truly means so much. And I do have one ask. If you have it in your heart to go online and leave a review specifically on Apple Podcasts, that would be so huge. It's been a while since people left reviews, and I appreciate it more than you know. Or if you could leave a rating on Spotify or whatever platform it is that you listen to this podcast. I know that Apple and Spotify are usually the most common, but people also leave comments and reviews on my YouTube. You guys, I do have Big Crystal Energy YouTube. So if you want to watch these episodes live, I mean, mostly it's just me yapping, and you can see my messy background, but I do share visual of the crystals that I'm working with and holding and whatnot, other bits and baubles that I have around me, or you can see my fashion moments. But anyhow, I hope you have a beautiful day. And before I forget, the crystals that I'm looking for at the crystal fair are Danburite, which I don't have, a record keeper quartz, Alexandrite, Iowite, which I think is going to be very expensive and I may not get that. What else? I think that's it. And I have a few specific crystals I want to get as gifts. And on that note, I will talk to you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for spending this time at the threshold with me. If you want to go deeper, follow me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash, where I share daily crystal magic and behind the scenes of this liminal life. You can also find resources, previous episodes, and ways to work with me at bigcrystalenergy.com. We're also on YouTube at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please rate it and review it and share it with a friend that you think would connect with it. It would mean so much to me and helping build this beautiful community of other magical friends and crystal workers. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye.